Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill.
But I believe the great is still yet to come. I won't stop fighting, man, until I'm done.
Welcome, folks, to the 10th edition of the Breakfast Ball. Before we get started here, I'd just like to say that thank you. As of today, we're roughly about 8.5 weeks into our YouTube experience, and we're pushing somewhere around 120 subscribers and 27,000 views. So if you can keep watching, guys, we'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone out there. Now, with that said, I'm your host, Bob Cardia. To my far left, your far right, the dashing Richie Stoltz. And in the middle, folks, we tried to get this guy on for 3 weeks after his very successful North American tour. The Hammer, Chris Hammerquist, is our special guest today on the Breakfast Ball. Today's title is Progress, Not Perfection, which, I got actually the idea from Richie, because Richie, I heard him telling one of his students, Richie said, progression is and not perfection. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. So having Hammer in as a guest, we met, I guess, at your cigar bar Monday, was it? We were there?
Yeah,
Monday.
Heritage.
Yeah, Heritage. So we're at the cigar bar, and I'm like, Chris, we got this great idea for a show. It's called Progress and Not Perfection. And he looked at me, and he's like, you do realize I counsel people, and that's an AA slogan. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea. So I wasn't doubting you, because
He was doubting you.
Yeah,
He was doubting. He was doubting. Sure.
I went online and I read, and sure enough, yeah, in the 1930s when AA started, it's about 80 years old. It's an anonymous quote, but it's awesome. Progress and not perfection. And for those of you who know me, I've been coaching at Rutgers now for 31 years this spring. And by the way, just on a personal note, thoughts and prayers to Jeff Dean's family. We started together at Rutgers 31 years ago. He started the semester before I did. He was the baseball coach and then got promoted to the athletic director. Unfortunately, Jeff passed away this past Monday, and I just want to recognize that and thoughts and prayers to his family. Anyway, in the midst of coaching, perfection, like Tiger talks about trying to be perfect all the time, and perfection, I guess Salvador Dali said something to the effect that don't worry about not achieving perfection, because it's not achievable. But I come in a different door. I come in the Vince Lombardi door. So I want to make sure I got the quote right. So Lombardi said, "Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence." I love it, and I know you and I talk about stuff like that, and you and I talk about stuff like that. That's that mindset is how you get to where you need to be. We're all big fans of Les Brown, and that when he says, most people don't reach their goals, not because they set their goals for the stratosphere and don't get there. Most people don't reach their goals because they set their goals for mediocre, and they do. So, with that said, our highly esteemed guest today, Chris Hammerquist. Chris, what's your job title again?
Well, first, Bob, thank you. Thank you for humbling me to be part of your show, and I'm grateful. And one thing I can say about Bob and Richie, they just came up with this idea and said they were going to do it, and they're going to create a podcast. And so what you're seeing with this podcast is exactly what you just laid out. It's progress, not perfection, right, Richie?
Yes, exactly.
So great that you're able to recognize that. You're a man of much wisdom at such a young age. I call you an old soul, right?
Well, Richie and I love to be perfect. That's for sure.
But progress, not perfection. So Bob asked what my job title is, and I'm not a big guy on titles, right? So for me, it's not self-deprecation, but it is humility. I'm fortunate enough to be part of a startup company out of Santa Clara, California. It's called Applied Cells. And we have some really cool novel technology that will isolate immune cells from your blood And then what they can do downstream from that is genetically modify those cells, right? And so they make them stronger and put them back into your body to kill cancer, right? So personalized healthcare is really where we're at. And our technology
Basically,
is really...
he's saying he's far more intelligent than you and I.
No.
I don't think he's saying it, but that's it's true.
Anybody who's been watching this for 2 months says, man, damn, they got themselves a smart one. But
No, but in all seriousness, like, we're actually going through that ourselves, right? Progress, not perfection. As a startup, I've never worked for a startup. And let me tell you, it's the most roller coaster ride role I've ever had. But we keep making progress, right? We're not perfect. We're learning as we go, and we continue to redesign and change things to meet our customers' needs. So that's the plug for my company. I'm done with that. Sorry.
your job title.
So I'm the director of our commercial business for North America, which means what? Which means I get to help put salespeople in place, build out the team, start to help my marketing people, identify the things in the target markets that we want to go after and segment the space. So essentially, I'm a glorified salesperson.
You are a very successful salesperson. I know at one point for Roche, you were one of the top salespeople in the company, which that's it. People know Roche through COVID and whatnot is one of the largest companies that does pharmaceuticals in the world. But with that said, so let's look at this. Chris and I have been friends now, one of my dearest, best friends in the world, since our kids played t-ball together, which is 20 years ago now. And he and I and our dear friend Brad used to go out on Friday nights to do the batting averages, which basically just guide time where we would go out and solve all the world's problems at that point, right? I'm fairly sure we cured cancer and split atoms, but anyway.
We definitely got batting averages.
We got batting averages every week. We did. We got advanced computations, but so I got to learn about Chris, and we're huge fans of Eric Thomas and Les Brown. And I consider Chris to be the South Jersey version of both of those guys. And I love humility. Chris is a very humble guy, but talking to Chris, his upbringing, he's like, when I was a kid, the family structure wasn't quite what he wanted it to be, and he ended up basically dropping out of high school and just wandering the streets. And I'm like, what the heck? Where you are today. And he goes through this whole progression as he went from that not knowing what he wanted to do in life. Then he joins the Navy, right? And from joining the Navy, what was your initial? What was your initial?
I was a boatswain's mate. Going into boot camp, I was a boatswain's mate. My recruiter sold me a bag of goods, man. I was hot. I had no idea what a boatswain's mate was. Right?
And you were saying you thought it was a good thing at that point.
I was like, well, he said, this is what he sold me on, right? He says, your job in the Navy is to protect the ship's integrity. The integrity of the ship, which is what's more important than that, right? When you're in the middle of the ocean. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Turns out that a boatswain's mate, and it's not a bad thing, right? And everybody has a job, but it wasn't for me, is the people who paint and chip and mop and clean. And honestly, that's probably mentally where I belong to be at that point in my life.
Right.
But once I went to boot camp, I started to get my act together.
Yep.
Right. I had discipline. Mm-hmm. I had structure. I had some company commanders screaming in my face, telling me how screwed up I was, and I needed to get my shit together.
Bob does that to me all the time.
Right?
And it's working, right?
Right. And so something clicked like halfway through boot camp, and I just started to become, AJ squared away, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I started to work hard, and the company commanders saw that in me. And you go to school and you get educated while you're in there, and I did really well at that. And they offered me any duty station I wanted, right? So I became an operations specialist, and I got sent to school down in Norfolk, actually Dam Neck, Virginia. And that's kind of where it began for me. I started to really kind of focus and work hard. And as an operations specialist, so from boatswain's mate to OS was a significant difference. Now I'm in Combat Information Center dealing with the commanding officer and the executive officer of the ship, providing them data on submarines and aircraft and other ships that are out there. And
That's
tracking.
awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome.
so it was
Big jump.
It was a big jump,
You were in
right?
the military for 4 years, right?
I was in for 8.
Hey, wow, that's I didn't even realize it. So then after that, you left, and then I guess you met someone that had your first child, right?
Yeah, so still not making the best decisions in life,
Yeah.
but I had a really beautiful blessing come from that. I had a son, Anthony.
Anthony's
who's-
great. Anthony,
who's
if you need your
the
house
best.
roofed, by the way, he roofed my other house. He
Yeah.
does fantastic work.
I'm really proud of him. Like he's really overcome a lot of adversity in his
yes,
life.
Yes, he has. And we could actually do that story on a different day.
Yeah,
too,
you can have
'cause-
Anthony come on
Yeah,
and probably
right.
share your story, his
Yep.
story from
Yep.
his perspective.
Yep.
But I'm really proud of him, and I'm proud of all my kids.
Of
actually.
course, obviously. I grew up with your kids. I love your kids.
Yeah.
So from there, right? Unfortunately, like you said, decisions. I guess your girlfriend at the time had left, right? And you raised Anthony on your own. So
Yeah.
now you're a single dad out of the military, and you put yourself basically through college, and then you start working your way up the ladder. And I guess what was your first job in sales? What was that?
So my first job was a company called Biochemical Sciences. They were out of Swedesboro. And I didn't go directly into sales. I worked at a hospital lab as a histologist for a while. And then I kind of got recruited into becoming a technical support person at Biochemical Sciences, training people in histology. We were a histology cytology company, which essentially means we take your body parts and we help the pathologist figure out what's wrong with you, right?
'Cause
Cancer.
Richie and I are both sitting here wondering what histology is.
Yeah. So,
But I wasn't
But it
the
sounds
only one.
right.
you
I'm
see
nodding
the
like
slides
yeah.
that people look at under the microscope?
Right.
It's really thin layers of whatever tissue that we decide that needs to be looked at.
Okay.
So any surgery that's done in a hospital, they have to go to the pathologist and figure out what was going on. So it was a cool job. I enjoyed it, but I felt like I needed more. Right, doing the 9 to 5 for me, that's not my personality. Having to clock in, clock out. I feel like if you work hard and you're willing to do whatever it takes to be successful, you don't need to be managed. You're just going to be self-managed because you're self-driven.
That's the quote we talk about all the time, right? Everybody is self-made, but only the successful people want to admit it. Yeah. And you and I have that conversation all the time because that's where Chris and I we hit a chord like almost instantly. Is like and we ran actually for office together at one point. I'll say it because we're talking. I get shit done. Like that's what I do. Like that's that's the most things or the most important thing to me. And what was the expression used with the plane?
You're building a plane while you're flying it.
Yeah, that's
right?
what Richie and I are hoping we don't crash into the mountain. But yes, that's what we do. We don't wait around to say but all the meetings that we go to, and we go all over the place. I mean, we would have been like at least a half dozen different places in the past year doing what we do. And you'll know right away when you go to a meeting and someone's like, and I use the same analogy all the time. Like you're pitching an idea and they're like, well, what happens if a meteor hits? Like, I mean, if that's your attitude, you're going nowhere, man. Like, I okay, thank you. We're gonna, yeah, we haven't gotten this far. I mean, the golf school that I own, that my family founded, South Jersey Golf Schools. We're the oldest golf school. We've been in continuous operation for like 45, 50 years. Like, we just started with one golf camp in 1980, and now we are where we are. We've done programs and what we do, and that's because it's constant progress. We constantly throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And right now, this podcast is growing well. So back to our featured guest here. So he started building up the ladder. So from histology, he went to.
So then I went to this biochemical sciences company, and they had novel equipment too that would kind of revolutionize the pathology labs and simplify things. So I ended up taking a position. I saw the salespeople come in for training that I had to train, right? And I saw them, and they were cool people, but they were no different than me. And they were making a lot of money, a lot more than I was making. And they had a lifestyle that I was drawn to. Like, they got to travel on the company's expenses, and they got to see places and meet people. And that just fits my personality, and I wanted that.
It does, yeah. Your personality, very, very.
It's just personable.
Yes, personable is the word I was
Personable.
looking for. Yes, people skills.
And I love people. I love all people, all races, colors. I could care less because everybody's got some spice, and I like spice.
Well, I love people. I don't know if I love all people.
Yeah, I love all people.
There's a
I
couple
really
people
do.
I'm not the biggest fan of.
And the
Yeah.
people who worry about meteors hitting the podcast, I'd rather just move forward. But it's okay,
But yeah, so I got to do that and then progressed, right? I don't want to bore you guys with all the details, but let's just say I progressed into sales.
So then when you and I met, you were at Roche.
Yes.
Yeah, and like I was just, so super impressed by like he was winning all these sales awards and recruiters were seeking him out to for different positions. Like the guy was in demand, and like I just sat there and I loved it because it's something that you and I actually talked about too. Is so when Richie decided he wanted to be a tour golfer, and I've done what I've done. Like we've all had the same epiphany, and you sit there and you listen to these people and you talk to people, and like, why is this person any better than me? Like, I've been doing this teaching thing now for I don't know, over 30 years, and people are like, hey, you're really good at this, and like we could do our $64 half-hour lesson all day and make a decent living out of doing it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with people that want to do that, but like I want my life to make a difference. You want your life to make a difference. You want life to make a difference. Like what you got one shot at this, folks. What I loved about Chris. I mean, Chris is Les Brown. He's Eric Thomas. I mean, you dropped out of high school, had nothing going for you, wandering the streets, getting in trouble. And look at you now. I mean,
You're on a podcast.
I'm on my first. This is my first podcast ever. Like I'm actually.
And we feel bad about that, but that's okay.
No, I'm actually excited because let me just go back, right?
Yeah,
so, yes, I can look back though, and I'm a spiritual guy, right? And I can see God's hand at work in my life throughout all of this. I'd like to say and take credit for all of it. I did the work, right? And they say God will move the mountain, but you better bring the shovel, right? And so I brung the shovel. And so, and I do need to kind of back up, Bob, just a little bit to the beginning. So I appreciate your respect for me and my anonymity, but counseling people in AA is not what I do. What I do, I am in AA. I'm 16 years sober, and I'm proud of that. I haven't had a drop of booze in 16 years. And how I do that is by helping the next person. So I'm not counseling anybody. They're actually helping me to stay sober. And we work together, and I help them, and that's how the program works.
That's your personality, because I know, in speaking with some of the people that you've talked to, that how helpful they think you are. So like, that's one of the keys I think, and you don't necessarily see it the way I do, but yes, they're helping you, but like your example and what you bring to the table, is counseling. It's very helpful to the people around you, which I admire.
And quite honestly, so we talk about where I'm at in my career, right? But I've gone through struggles, we know, and you, Bob, you and I know this, we talk about it, of imposter syndrome, right? I come from, really modest means, let's say it that way, and I've pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and then I got to a place where I'm having success, and I'm a leader now, and I manage people, and I'm like, holy crap, how did I get here? I woke up, and I'm like, wow, am I a fraud? Am I not real? And I've been in therapy and worked through all of this stuff, and I finally got to a place where, I belong here.
Yeah.
I've got so much track record to look back on that says, you're not a fraud. And Bob, he's helped me so much do that. Like,
we talk, man. It's crazy because you and I experience a lot of the same things. Like I know I had a lesson the other day. A guy came in, and it made me feel great. But he's like, you charge $84 an hour? I'm like, yeah. And I'm expecting him to say, is there a discount for doing 5 or something like that? And he's like, he goes, I read your resume. He goes, your resume is one of the most impressive resumes of every instructor that I've read. He's like, why don't you charge more? I'm like, well, circumstance, you bill based upon the market that you're in. And we're a golf school and academy, so we charge upon that rate. But for him to say that to me, I'm like, you know what? That made me feel good. And then then I sit in moments I'm looking like, boy, I've accomplished a lot. Yes. And that's but that's why we do what we do. So anyway, the handsome Richie Stoltz. So we have not
I'm sorry,
the dashing Richie Stoltz. So please share a story where your progression, not perfection, has impacted your life?
Yeah, so... Oh, I'm not going to tap the table.
We'll slurp coffee, though, right? There you go.
Back in college, and I might have told this story before, but back in college, I took a public speaking class. And I think on the first speech, I got like a 40 or a 30. And I was like, man, this isn't for me.
Out of 40?
What?
Out of 100.
Not out of 40.
That's just what we can
unfortunately. I was like, man, public speaking isn't for me.
It's not for most.
I kind of just like backed off of it a little bit, and you actually got me into public speaking a little bit more.
I basically what I did with
it.
Starter with Richie is like, all right, Richie, I'm going to take a break here. You're on. And, you're either going to sink or swim at that point, man.
Yeah.
It's like the equivalent of throwing your kid in the pool and say, all right, you're either going to swim or drown.
Yeah, so I never think I'm going to be perfect at everything. I think it was Tiger Woods that called it competitive perfection.
Mm.
So you're never going to be perfect, but you strive to be that perfect.
Yeah.
So every time that I speak, I just look to get a little bit better at it.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. I always rewatch the podcast and go, what did I do wrong there? Did I tap the table?
Yeah.
Did I say too many times?
It's great because the quote we started with, the Vince Lombardi thing, that's I think where that's the commonality between all of us is like, perfection is not achievable, but I'm still seeking perfection. Like I'm still pushing ourselves. Like with the conversation we had before this, I'm sitting up at nights. The first 3 or 4 episodes we did, and we're doing the motivational shorts on YouTube and TikTok and Spotify, all the stuff that we're doing. The first 16, 24 of those were easy for me because it's stuff I say all the time. Like everybody hangs around me all the time. Like I'm a broken record with some of these stories. But once you start getting to your 152nd, I think is the number of short. Like now you gotta, as Chris said, you gotta prep. So it's very common for me now to be sitting up, late night, reading excerpts of books that I've read before, or looking at videos, or constantly looking for new. And I love it though. I love it. Like I don't love it at 2:00 in the morning when I'm writing, but I love it like when I'm sitting there going, wow, like this is a new and better way of thinking of things. And so the I guess the AA of progress, not perfection, is something that we all live to achieve.
I tell you that just that brief word, those couple words, right? Progress, not perfection. 3 words. Is so powerful. It's been so powerful in my life because it's allowed me to realize that I am infallible. But more importantly, it helped me realize that we all are. I used to think I was unique, right? I'm the only one that's screwing up. I'm the only one that thinks this way. I'm the only one that behaves this way. And learning to listen to others and understand where they are in their life. We're all at different places in our walk in this life, right? It's a journey, and your journey is your journey, right? Your journey is your journey.
Yep.
And as long as you're moving forward, I like this saying, and I don't know if I stole it from you or I stole it from somebody, but if we're all gonna fail in life, right?
Yeah.
Failure is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
But you have to fail forward.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
I like to think of never failing, but learning.
Right.
If you do fail, it's not a failure.
Right.
It's a learning experience.
It's always learning, as long as you're willing to look at it.
Yeah.
And not internalize it and be too emotional about it. You're going to learn.
So this is actually the perfect, because I know we're coming up against the end of the program. The Winston Churchill quote that we did on one of the shorts. So if you don't mind, I'll read that one because I think this summarizes everything we've talked about for the past half hour or so. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Love it. Thanks for being with us today, guys. In the 10th episode of The Breakfast Ball. Keep subscribing if you like what we're doing.
Thanks for having me
Oh
on.
my God.
Richie.
Thanks for coming.
It's my first
Yes.
podcast. It actually wasn't
We
so
went
bad.
through 3 weeks trying to get this guy on. I'll tell you what. The man's
Heart
hitting-
attack. I thought I had a heart attack, but it wasn't, thank God.
I prefer to
That's
think
the
it was
only
a-
thing that would keep me from his podcast.
I've been telling everybody he's a hugely successful North American tour. But anyway, guys, have a great one. See you next week.
Glass of bourbon, ha ha. My bourbon heart. My bourbon heart. Alcohol. Because no great story ever started with, I'll have a salad.